Sir, I'll be starting. A very good morning to everyone gathered here. I am Vedpriya Nairi, Assistant Professor Law, DME Law School, and I welcome you all to the Vice Chancellor's Conclave on the impact of COVID on legal education and career prospects. Today we have with us two very distinguished members of the legal fraternity, Professor Dr. Vinay Kapoor Mehra, Vice Chancellor, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar National Law University, Sonipat, and Professor Dr. Vijayendra Kumar, Vice Chancellor, Maharashtra National Law University, Nagpur, as the guests for this conclave. We welcome you, ma'am. Welcome, sir. I
Thank
would
you.
Yeah,
I would also like to extend a very warm welcome to Honorable Mr. Justice Bhagat Singh Sir, Director General, Delhi Metropolitan Education, Noida, and former Judge, Allahabad High Court, to today's conclave. Thank
thank
you,
you.
sir, for your presence and for
Thank
the blessings for this event.
thank you. God
I
bless
also welcome Professor Dr. Ravikant Swami, Director DME, Professor Dr. N.K. Behel, Dean DME Law School, and Professor Dr. Bhavesh Gupta, Head Academics, DME Law School, who will also moderate the session. I welcome the participants, and I'm very sure that today's event will help everyone present here in enriching their experience and gaining valuable knowledge on this theme. I would now request Dr. Ravikant Swami, Director GME, to kindly introduce and welcome Dr. Vinay Kapoor Mehra. Please, sir.
you. It's a great day for DME today because it's like watching the movie Two States, where we have one vice chancellor from the south and another one from the north. Introducing Professor Vinay Kapoor Mehra is little difficult because she is known to be the Iron Lady of Punjab. Professor Mehra studied law, she studied police administration, she studied women empowerment and development. She also had the prestigious postdoctoral fellowship. Dr. Mehra went to France, Strasbourg, for studying at the International Institute of Human Rights, and her areas of research include women and law, family law, and human rights. Ma'am has guided 7 PhD theses, and yes, in the education sector, we say that probably 10 or 11 is an optimum number for guiding PhD thesis, because when people come and tell me that, oh, I have guided 40 PhD thesis, ma'am, I'm really surprised that how a person can guide 40. So the number seems to be very optimum when I see the number of PhDs you have guided. This includes one of our faculty members also, Dr. Manisha Narula. Talking about ma'am's career, she served Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. She served Punjab Technical University, Jalandhar, and presently she is Vice Chancellor at NLU, Haryana. Ma'am has got lot many contributions other than teaching. She was the Commissioner of State Information Commission, Punjab. She was the member of Juvenile Justice Board, Ministry of Child and Women Empowerment, Punjab. She was also member of National Executive Committee constituted to celebrate the 350th birth anniversary of Guru Gobind Singh. Ma'am, we can relish the Virasat-e Khalsa at Anandpur Sahib. And well, today I came to know that you also have played a role in that Virasat-e Khalsa. It's a great monument which lakhs of people visit. That was the celebration of 350th birth anniversary of Guru Gobind Singh, and Professor Kapoor Mehra played a role in framing that. Ma'am has also been member of committee to draft the higher education laws in Punjab, and last but not the least, member of Constitutional Review Committee, Government of India in 2002. That's all about the introduction. But ma'am, one problem I was having in your introduction is, if in Hindi we call it Kulpati, I don't know, this Pati word means you are a woman activist. So this Kulpati, I don't know how do we call it in Hindi. So we need to work on that. Thank you, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, for introducing me to the rest of the faculty members and the audience. Uh, I can give you the equivalent for this word Kulpati. When I write in Hindi, I use the word Kulguru. So
Okay,
Guru
okay.
is gender neutral term.
Right. It should be gender neutral. I
So
faced
I
this
write
problem
that
today.
in Hindi, I write not Kulpati but Kulguru.
Right, ma'am.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, and welcome, ma'am. I would now like request Dean, sir, Professor Dr. N.K. Behel, to welcome Dr. Vijayendra Kumar. Please, sir.
Honorable Vice Chairman DME, Shri Aman Sahni sir, Honorable Director General, Mr. Justice Bhamar Singh sir, former Judge, High Court of UP, Professor Dr. Vinay Kapoor Mehra, Founder Vice Chancellor, NLU Sonipat, Director DME, Dr. Ravikant Swami sir, Head of Academics, DME, Dr. Bhavish Gupta, my faculty colleagues, and dear participants. First of all, I extend my heartiest welcome to Dr. Vijayendra Kumar on behalf of entire management of Delhi Metropolitan Education, Noida. Professor Dr. Vijayendra Kumar, Vice Chancellor of Maharashtra National Law University, Nagpur, was the Vice Chancellor of National Law University and Judicial Academy, Assam, and the Registrar of Nalsar, University of Law, Hyderabad, before he joined as first Vice Chancellor of NLU, Nagpur. An astute academician and researcher, he has numerous research articles and books to his credit. He has published research articles in reputed law journals on Hindu law and has contributed several books, reviews, and papers in various books. He has also 5 years of experience at the bar prior to joining the noble profession of teaching. Professor Kumar has participated and presented papers in several national and international conferences. Professor Kumar has been awarded Academic Staff Commonwealth Fellowship for the year 2009 and 10 for 6 months and visiting professor at King's College London, UK for 1 year. He has been a visiting faculty at National Academy of Direct Taxes, Nagpur. Professor Kumar was opted member of Common Law Admission Test, that is CLAT 2009, by the Core Committee of CLAT, and he has organized third All India Entrance Test of National Law University, Delhi in May 2010 as chairman of Entrance Test Committee. He specialized in personal laws and then undertook his PhD on sonship and adoption under Hindu law. Professor Vijayendra Kumar, by his expertise, has shaped the landscape of legal education in India. I, Dr. N.K. Behel, Dean, DME School of Law, on behalf of Delhi Metropolitan Education, Noida, and the entire fraternity of the institution, welcome Dr. Vijayendra Kumar to this Vice Chancellor conclave on a very important and contemporary topic relating to the future of legal education in our country. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you very
Welcome
much.
once
Thank you,
again.
Dr. Saab. Thanks a lot.
To have you amongst us. Thank you. Over to Vedpriya.
Thank you so much, sir. So without further ado, I would welcome and request Professor Dr. Vinay Kapoor Mehra to deliver her lecture and enlighten us on today's theme. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Priya. So it's almost 4 months that we are facing the lockdown period, and we have been confined, movement has been restricted. Despite all these hurdles, we are doing our best. And as we know that all the sectors have been affected, maybe it's a primary sector, secondary or tertiary. And education is the most affected sector due to the COVID-19. All the efforts have been done that the precious time of the students is not being wasted. So most of the university had the online classes, online presentations, Viva, and exams too. So we can say that we have defeated COVID-19. We are doing our best to keep with the pace of the time and keep the student enlightened on each and every. Most of the university, including our university, we had expert lectures, then webinars, seminars. So lectures were also uploaded by the teachers on YouTube and university websites. So I think all the university have done their best so that the education in the legal field is not. And we all know that BCI has not allowed till date in LLB degree education through correspondence or through distance education. I think this has been the first time when we are delivering the things through digital education or the digital mode. We are not face to face. Why BCI has not allowed LLB degree to be through correspondence or through distance? Because this is the area which needs special training of the pupil or the students. We know that in law we does not teach the student just the acts or the facts or the things. He is taught as well how to behave with others. So there is I think, overall development while the student is in the campus, and especially in the national law universities, which are the residential university, the more emphasis is given on the overall development of students. All extra activities are being arranged because they are at our disposal 24 hours and the staff is there for 24 hours. So we manage the things that not a single minute of the student is being wasted. But in legal education, we know that the person has to deal with the human beings and not with the machines, as in the case of engineering. So we are not dealing with the robots. So one must understand the psychology. And it is only possible when we are moving together with face to face with other individuals. Now, our university has also incorporated psychology as a subject. I think it will be the first university, national law university, which has introduced psychology as a subject. Because I feel a student of law must be acquainted with the psychology. While he is studying history, sociology, economics, political science, but the most important is that he must also learn about the psychology. Because then he must know the psychology if he want to succeed of judge or the presiding officer. He must know the psychology of the counsel from the other side. He must know the psychology of the client. So while reading the minds of the other person, one can win, even if the case is very weak. I had an example that we had a case of the university and we approached our very renowned person with a service law background and asked to file the case on Monday. He said, no, I will not file on Monday because Monday is the heaviest day for the judiciary. So after the break of Saturday and Sunday, the judges has a lot of cases, so they don't appreciate any new case. So I'll file on Wednesday. So at that time, the person has not read the psychology in the law curriculum, but he was aware. He was aware about the psychology of the presiding officer. That's why. And he has been a very good, renowned you can say, advocate at the Punjab and Haryana High Court with the service law as his specialization. I mean, during this COVID period, most people has joined online internships. It's a good thing that they have not wasted their time. But I don't think that online internship has been very beneficial to the student. Because law is not a theory. It is also practice. So whatever we have to learn through practice, so it is possible when we are doing the things actually in the field. So online internship, I think, may not have good results, but still it has given a lot of confidence to the student that they are doing something, they have not wasted their summer vacation. Now, as far as the future of the legal education, because we don't know how long this period will continue, and we have to cope up with it. Now, my suggestion is that we should demarcate our syllabi in such a manner that we should segregate certain portions where the student can do the self-study. So we should give him the topics that these are the topics where you don't require any of the counseling from the teacher or the mentor. So you prepare this area yourself. The next is that the material should be uploaded either on YouTube or on the website of the university, and then the student can discuss it with the teacher through the video conferencing or their WhatsApp or whatever mode they feel free. Then the third is there can be certain topics where the child cannot understand the things of his own. So we can do this thing that whatever we have been earlier doing, that online classes. So for that purpose, because it is not possible to have 6 hours, because in all the national law university or in other with having honors degree, we have 6 subjects. So it's not possible like the regular classes that we should have 6 hours classes, because it is very burdensome for the student, and many a time parents call me and say that it's very you can say hectic and stressful. So we can plan that some of the area which is the teacher has to interact, the this duration of the class can be 30 to 40 minutes instead of 1 hour. And these meetings can be through Google or through other modes, software which we can purchase, or there are many free such platforms offered by the even UGC, and in our state has also offered certain free platform for the educational purposes. So that can be that online interaction with the, so we have the face-to-face interaction, because many things can be made clear through our gestures. So when there is a eye contact with the students, and the child is hearing, he is looking at the teacher, many things go directly to the student. So face-to-face teaching has this advantage. So that's why BCI has not allowed the correspondence degree for the law student. So if, of course, after the online classes, if they have any problem, they can put their problems to the teacher concerned. And the fourth part can be divided as a projects. Assignments or projects, and that should be with the local problems. That the child is at home he should demarcate the areas where he can work directly with the people. He should be given free hand that he choose any of the problem of his locality, of his village, of his city, and work on it. Practical work. I think this is the advantage. This can be the advantage of this lockdown period, that the child is at home, or he can be such assignment that you do the community work. So we can change our pattern of education. So with that, Mr. Traditional type of why the degrees in the foreign countries have more weightage than our degrees? Because they give more and more emphasis on the practical work, whereas we give the, in our country, sorry to say, the whole PhD thesis can be written in a sitting in a single room with our laptop. But is that degree is going to benefit the society or even a single person? Because after getting the degree, we don't even open our PhD thesis to find out if there is something relevant in it. So the projects or the degree should be such which should really contribute to the society, to the nation, and to the whole mankind. At present, we see that whole universe is being affected. It's not a case of single country. So everyone is being affected because we are so interconnected. The whole cosmic world is one. It is said, Yat Pinde Tat Brahmande. Means our body is composed of all that 5 elements, and the whole universe is composed of all those 5 elements. Jal, Agni, Vayu, Akash, and Prithvi. So we are so interconnected that if anything positive or negative happens in one part of the universe, it is going to affect the other part definitely. Suppose there is a leakage, petrol leakage in Mexico, it's going to affect the sea life of the Andaman Nicobar. So keeping this thing in mind, we should nurture the minds of our student that education does not mean that just cram the facts, just get the degree and focus on the career alone. And the law is the very noble profession where we are the advocates for other. So this art of advocacy needs that there should be overall development of our students. So by making certain changes in our mechanism of delivery, we can make the degree more fruitful, and we can make our students good citizens, and you can say good human beings. We are not, who is not only thinking of his own career, but also of the whole universe. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. So India is the country where we have always combined the materialistic education with the spiritual education. In Gurukuls, there was overall development of the child. He was told that he is not only a body. There is one mind too, is just controlling the body. And there is something supreme which is also controlling both his mind and body. But present education is lacking all these elements. That's why we get frustrated, we have stress, and we succumb to the pressure. Now, every day we find a news that some celebrity or some IAS officer, some big businessman has committed a suicide. We must introspect all these questions. Even the sometimes good advocates, they also could not cope up with their family problems and commit suicide. So all these issues has to be addressed. No doubt we are making our students to compete with the others at the international level, because there is a lot of demand of this profession. More and more multinational companies emerging, and many people, they are looking to India because India is giving best minds to the world. There's hardly any field where our students have not excelled. So legal education, we want more and more Nani Palkiwala and such type of people. But the thing is, we have to focus on their all-round development. Otherwise, even our topper can commit suicide the moment he has to face any problem at the personal level, at the family level, or in the society at any stage, or even in the professional life. So with these words, I want to conclude. Thank you everyone. Thanks to the DME family, Managing Director, Justice Bhagwan, I think, then Dean, Mr. Bahal, Director, Mr. Ravikant, and Head, and also Professor Vijender, who is also experts of the family law, my same subject. So he must be appreciating that we need that this our legal education such as where we could produce the best minds and best human beings. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the insightful delivery. I would now welcome Professor Dr. Vijendra Kumar to deliver his address. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. First, good morning to all. The Honorable Sri Justice Bhanwar Singh, the Director General, and the former Judge Allahabad High Court, where I myself practiced for almost 5 long years. The Dean, Dr. N.K. Bahal, the former District and Session Judge, and my PhD mate. We did a PhD together way back in 1994 from MD University, Rohtak. Professor Vinay Kapoor, my colleague Vice Chancellor of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar National University, Sonipat, NCR of Delhi. Dr. Bhavesh Gupta, Ms. Bedpriya, and all my faculty colleagues from DME, the dear students, the research scholars, and the participants, those who are attending this conclave. First, I say thanks to DME to invite me and to address you all, where I can share my thoughts about the impact of COVID-19 pandemic and legal education, about the career prospects of the new aspirants, the budding lawyer. Let me just first tell you, if you look at the chart of the day, there is around 1.3 crore positive infected cases in the globe. There are more than 5.6 lakh deaths globally. And India is also facing the same similar problem with 8.5 positive cases, more than 22,000 deaths, the casualties. And the Maharashtra is #1 in the whole country, where I lead my university, which has around 2.5 lakh positive cases with 10,000 deaths. But that's not the case. It is just a fact. We need to be more careful, more cautious about it, because the preventive measures towards the spread of COVID-19 pandemic have been taken care of the central government, the state government, the municipal corporations, or the district administrations throughout the country. And it has been quite a commendable mission. From June 1st, we came to unlock phase 1, and now we are in phase 2, which was called as a mission begin again. But remember, until June 30th, 2020, the Honorable Prime Minister of the country has been with us, and he has addressed the nation 6 times until now. That kind of positive leadership gives a kind of food for thought, especially to all the aspirants of legal education, be it a member of bar, bench, academia, or academic administration. When the head of the family takes care that much and who leads from the front, the obligation comes on each of the family members to be as assertive, as cautious, as careful as the head of the institution. Addressing a nation which has almost 1.38 crore population, 338, it's not a small job. But he leads from the front. That gives us to fight against this pandemic. But the legal education is the concern for today's conclave. Of course, it has impacted greatly the legal education and legal profession, rather I say both. Though the judiciary has been equally proactive to come out with the e-courts, the advocates, the learned members of the bench, bar, also had been very prominent and prompt, because they are equally technocrat, to come out with e-lawyering. And the e-committee of the Supreme Court made a good and commendable job to start with e-filing, whereas the Delhi High Court has been champion into that. Keeping that kind of background in mind, when we come to the legal education, until March 16, 2020, it was a very kind of a normal way of teaching, learning, pedagogy. But suddenly, overnight, where most of us were not prepared, we were absolutely unprepared, having a sound sleep in academic administration and teaching, learning, pedagogy, and suddenly we were made to woke up from the deep sleep, where the students were pushed back home, which has created a new phenomena for the parents. At the same time, the teachers were also pushed back to their cabins or at home, and administration was left with no help, even from the top class higher education regulators. So in such a situation, most of the higher education institutions, be it private or public, changed the pattern of teaching, learning, pedagogy, and they came to the online platform, the digital learning. Now here, let me share with all of you my experience of almost 20 years being in NLU culture. Most of the senior most professors, the parents, including the learned member of the bar and the senior members of the bench, they used to tell us, rather advise us, not to allow their wards to carry the mobile, the iPad in the classroom. And to my knowledge, all institutions of higher education are having their campus as Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi means even in the classroom there is or there was an internet facility. And I used to tell them, sir, they are the lawyer of the future. If they do not know the distinction between use and misuse, use and proper use, then we can't teach them be a good lawyer, a lawyer of the future, who is supposed to be socially sensitive, technically sound, professionally competent. And that learning among these budding lawyers help the academic administration and the teachers to come on the online teaching virtual platform where the teacher and the taught both became comfortable. And that has become a new normal of legal education today. Most of the national law schools, if I say, and some of the private schools also started their academic session virtually. And they are sure soon we are not going to have a physical classroom teaching. So see the paradigm shift from traditional teaching learning pedagogy to virtual teaching learning pedagogy. It was so quick. Within 3 months or maximum 3.5 months, we are somewhere where we never imagined. However, it has created certain issues among the students, among the teachers, among the academic administration also. Whereas regulators such as UGC, for us, Bar Council of India, of course, giving a push from the back, but not as quick as Dr. Vinay Kapoor also made a mention in her speech. It would have been really better had they been a little more prompt, taking student concern seriously. And when I say that, I mean my words. Because in public sector, as I'm in public sector, Dr. Kapoor is in public sector, we are bound to follow certain reservation policies, certain other policies of each of the states throughout the country. And they are the socially and economically backward students. We cannot ignore them. When government in normal course of policy matters tried its best to bring them up, we as education administrator also owe the same responsibility and obligation to bring them up. So when virtual teaching learning pedagogy was started almost in the last week of March, last semester, the most of the students were not having the internet facility as comfortable as it is required for online teaching learning pedagogy. Though they were connected, but the speed of internet was not that comfortable. At the same time, India lives in rural areas where the electricity is a biggest challenge even today. So when the students were pushed back to home, they were kind enough, very cautious, very careful, went back home, started living with their parents, started helping their parents in their family matters and family issues and family court. But issues such as electricity, issues such as compatibility with internet speed made them to be away from the teachers online. Of course, there was an alternative to that, as Dr. Vinay Kapoor also made a mention. Directions were given to all the teachers to record their lectures they did that. We supplied those recordings to the students, but to download a audio video lecture also needs a certain database, storage, and speed. So some of the national schools reimburse the data up to a certain limit as agreed between the students and the administration to help them to buy the new data package, download the recorded lectures, listen them carefully, and complete the assignment. Next point here, which my colleague could not mention, but I make a mention of that, e-library, e-resources, remote access of the library, which is going to be a challenge to all institutions of higher education throughout the country. And I am of the definite opinion, unless the e-resources are not connected with online teaching learning pedagogy, we will not get the result what we think to get from the students. And it is not safe. And true to say, students are not doing their jobs sincerely. If e-database is provided to them through remote access, where the copyright and other laws are taken care by the institutions, including the size of download and proper footnoting, proper referencing and all, this online teaching learning pedagogy may not be successful. It will just remain a supplement. It won't become a complement. So to see it as a complement along with the supplement, the teachers, of course, they are under pressure to improve their skills, because until March, they were teaching in the classroom and they could see the feeling of the students sitting in front of them, guide them accordingly. But now they are teaching to a machine, and through that machine, the virtual platform, they are addressing the students, and there is no human touch attached with the delivery, but it has to be in a normal professional way. So teaching becomes more relevant, more useful if e-resources are supported by the administration, though I understand it will cost a lot to the management, statutory bodies of the public institutions. It may also cost to the consortium of national schools, or it may cost to the UGC or MHRD or BCI, but let it be, because that is the need of the hour. To support the audiovisual teaching of the teachers, provide electronic database to the students, will cater the need of the student and the scholar. At the same time, it requires to be provided to the teachers also, because in the country, to my best knowledge, there had not been a culture among the teachers to buy number of books in their domain area of expertise. They rely on the physical presence of library of the institutions wherever they are working. They are not the practitioner like advocates, where they have a beautiful library and they invest a huge, or the honorable judges, where government provides them, or the High Court and Supreme Court provides them with the library in the chamber and at home. But in India, the institutions do not provide individual library to its teachers. Neither they buy resources on their own. So in such kind of situation, where virtual teaching learning pedagogy is the need of the hour, all teachers to require database, either physical or electronical. So if library is made electronic and e-portal is open to these teachers as well through remote access, in that case, the teacher and the taught both will give the result which we all expect from them. Next point comes the impact of psychological issues, as Dr. Vinay Kapoor also made a mention. I'm sure among the attendees, there may be some senior or middle-aged attendees who have their children of ranging between 18 to 23. Until recently, in India, there was not a custom or a practice where these mature adolescents are kept at home. They were always in the hostel. They were always busy in their learning physically in their institution of higher education. And from there, they used to go to job, and thereafter they settle into their personal life. But now the situation has come where these mature adolescents, or they may be adult legally, but they are not that much mature physically, psychologically, emotionally. They are locked in the home with the parents, with the grandparents, with the siblings. So the adjustment with the family at this age is a challenge. It has a lot of psychological impact on the parents, the grandparents, the children, and especially the ailing parents or grandparents in the family. And it becomes more crucial or cruel when even the parents are working, and they are working from home. So the home has become an office. And in an office, the parents and mature adolescents are put together 24/7, into 30 days, and more than 4 months are gone. So their love is over, their angers are over, their affections are over, mother's menu for best cooking is over. And in last 4 months, they could not buy costly gifts, costly garments and all. So it has created a distraction in the matrimonial relationships, fiduciary relationships, son-daughter relationships, mother-son relationships, siblings relationships. So there are a lot of psychological issues. Keeping that into mind, some of the NLUs, I can say, including my national school, we have a counselor with us. And these counselors have been attached with the students virtually. They have been given an independent virtual portal with a team of students where once in a week or twice a week, they interact and they share their psychological, emotional, all those issues with the counselor. Counselor gets back to them with a solution. And if any case is found to be beyond 60% or 65%, a confidential report comes to me or comes to the head of the institution, where the head of the institutions and the parents are put together to find the best solution to help the student. So the psychological issues have become a part and parcel of teaching learning process, be it mental, physical, or emotional. Then next come, of course, it's a teaching learning paradigm shift, but it is not that simple for the teachers, and it had been very difficult for the teachers to come in front of the camera, to control the emotions, to control the voice modulation, to choreograph their own lecture. It had been really difficult. For that purpose, some of the NLUs, I say on behalf of NLUs and on behalf of my own NLU, we started having a virtual faculty webinars twice a week, so that let us talk ourselves from each other's point of view. What are the problems each one of us are facing while addressing the student? Because when a teacher gets angry in the classroom, so there is an eye contact. You can see the emotions of the students, and doors are closed. But in the virtual world, on a virtual platform, how many people are watching you, the hidden people are watching you, you have no idea. You cannot even shout on your students. You cannot even ask them to switch off your video or switch on your video or mute your audio, this or unmute your audio, all those things. At the same time, you have to deliver the contents of your lecture. And the lecture has to be in the context, the relevant teaching. It can't be just anything you share with the students and class is done. No, because the formal recordings are done. You do not know where this recording is going to be, in how many hands it is going to be, for what purpose it is going to be used. Teachers have a habit to criticize everybody under the sky in the classroom from a quote unquote academic point of view. But in virtual teaching learning pedagogy, that also has gone. Because you do not know in these kind of sensitive timings, unprecedented timings, a small comment maybe meant for academic purposes may go viral. And remember, students and teachers never happy with each other in 100%. Because the evaluation which is to be done by the teacher spoil everything good between the two, teacher and the people. So it has been a very difficult for the teachers to come out with this paradigm shift and become a normal. Remember, there may be some young scholars sitting here. When a teacher starts a career and the teacher, he or she prepares a note saying, yes, my class is 1 hour. So he or she will read 5-6 hours, will make a note of 2-3 pages or 5 pages, or will prepare a PPT of 5 PPTs or 10 PPTs and 20 PPTs. So the teacher is good on the content, on the concept, maybe good with the caseload to be referred. But when the actual teaching begins in the classroom, within 30 minutes or 25 minutes, all notes are exhausted. And then teacher thinks, what should I do now? Because I have to survive for another 20, 25 or 15 minutes. See that gap. So the gap of a new teacher, new kind of career-oriented teacher, committed, dedicated teacher, because there was a lack of experience adding into the context or contents of the lecture. So that examples which a young teacher cannot give in first week of his or her teaching, the explanations, the obiters from the case were missing for the teachers when they started virtual teaching. And they were too cautious, oversensitive. They were teaching only the content. And those contents without any example, without any reference, without any obiter, were very heavy on the students to take seriously for a 1 hour. Keeping those things, as rightly pointed by Dr. Vinay Kapoor, the virtual lecture is not supposed to be a lengthy lecture, maybe for 60 minutes or 90 minutes. Whereas in NLUs, the culture is 1.5 hours to 2 hours is a lecture, because a lot of practical oriented teaching goes into that. But when there is a virtual lecture, it should not be more than 40 or 45 or maximum 50 minutes. Because there is a supplying of contents from one side, it's a one-way traffic. Hardly students will ask questions, or they will type question into their chat box. Or the teacher sometimes may not even look at it towards the chat box. And he or she just goes on and goes on and goes on. So that kind of teaching doesn't serve the purpose unless the contents are not put into the context with the supported examples. It doesn't get into the mind of the students so easily, because their backgrounds had been diverse. Somebody is a science student before getting into law. Somebody was a commerce student, somebody was a humanity student and all. So those things, of course, become a challenge. But challenge is only the cause which makes us to come out with the new thing, becomes innovation. And this virtual teaching learning pedagogy was used as an opportunity. As Honorable Prime Minister Saab also said number of times, it is not a calamity. We understand the pain of losing family members, loved ones, relatives and all, but let us change the calamity into an opportunity. So this situation became an opportunity for virtual teaching learning pedagogy. And as on today, Monday to Friday, regular virtual classes are going on, and number of institutions of higher education, including NLUs, are running their semesters as a virtual semester. Whereas to find the ways, in my university, the Saturday has been given as a reading day. Reading day for the students. Reading includes downloading and listening the video lecture also. Reading day for the teacher to prepare the teaching notes for the next 5 days, Monday to Friday. Because Sunday is not the day where the students and the teachers are supposed to work on the academic. Sunday is supposed to be the day where students and teachers are supposed to be with the family and loved ones. So that the Monday morning they become rejuvenated and carry on their teaching learning pedagogy until Friday. Yesterday morning when I mentioned this to the Honorable Chief Justice of India in personal meeting, my Lord, teaching is Monday to Friday and Saturday is reading day. The immediate reaction was, what is this? And I explained, my Lord, Saturday is meant for the student to read whatever the mandatory readings are given by the teacher after each and every lecture, after each and every units and modules in the teaching outlines, for which the teacher has to read first and then refer to the student, and the student supposed to read on Saturday, so that Monday to Friday it becomes easy to ask question to the teacher. And the Lordship says, wonderful, it's a good thing. I said it also has a hidden agenda. He said, what is that? I said mental health of the teacher and the students to be taken care by the administrator itself. If administration does not bother about the mental health of the teachers and the students, learning of any kind, of any amount, will not help them. He said, what is this? I said, teacher, Saturday, we have a webinar among the students and the counselor, among the teachers and the counselor. If anybody is facing any problem, they share their problem and we found the solution for that. But when they read on Saturday, Sunday, they feel, oh, 2 days, I have 2 days. So mentally, there is a relaxation. And when they read, they develop or their psychological pressure. So the Lordship was very happy. So I appeal all the teachers here, I appeal all the administration here or academic administrators, plan your teaching learning pedagogy in such a way where teachers and taught both are taken care of. Then next comes disadvantage of virtual teaching learning pedagogy. All is not well. Seems to be very, very modern, rather ultra modern. And we say we have reached globally on virtual platform. India is a digital India. Of course it is. Let it be. But when you talk about the teaching which is technical and professional, in this unprecedented time, the moot courts, the legal aid activities, the clinical legal education, the cooperative teaching are the most sufferer areas where teachers and students, at the same time, the research scholars are losing their grip over the learning. It's difficult to have a virtual, in virtual teaching, the cooperative teaching, where number of teachers will go to the classroom, will share their experience on the same topic from different perspectives. Is not happening now. At the same time, when students and teachers, they have a personal interaction in the classroom, outside the classroom, maybe getting supervision for their assignments and projects, as Dr. Vinay Kapoor also made a mention of that. That is not happening here. Because either the teacher is not available beyond a schedule hour virtually, or students have a problem at home because these 24 hours meant for the parents and siblings and grandparents also within the home. And these competitions are not taking place. The moot courts, where students work beyond their syllabi. They work lot of things on procedural laws, drafting skills. Those things are not happening. So there are certain disadvantages of this virtual teaching learning pedagogy. At the same time, what could be the way forward? Way forward is a blended teaching learning pedagogy. How the blended teaching learning pedagogy supposed to be provided by the academic administrators, to be taken care of comfortably by the teachers, to be made available within the domain of the students, is a challenge. It's a challenge because until March 2020, we all were focused on value-based legal education. Though it's difficult to define what is value-based legal education, because for advocates, there is the Advocates Act, which lays down the lot of professional ethics. But in legal education, if education is also put into that kind of jacket, then where is the thinking which the very senior people will say, think out of the box, think critically, think in pair. All those things should be put for discussion. So this value-based legal education could see now a new normal in the form of skill-based learning. And these skills are not only the professional skills now. These skills include the technical skills as well. Because let me just remind to my attendees and my young students present to me, e-courts are working in the country. When e-courts are working, e-lawyering has become a mandate. And e-lawyering is as difficult as it was for teachers to come and deliver virtual lecture. Let's pose that question to ourselves. How many young advocates, middle advocates, or senior most advocates are comfortable in e-lawyering? Remember, there had been a reference from a particular bench about the dress code of a lawyer who appeared for e-lawyering in an unwarranted kind of dress. So the e-courts is a challenge because the all documents, the entire file, the exhibits, the expert reports, and there are many more things. The Honorable Judge has to see through AI now in virtual format, which has not or never been a kind of norms in the judging system per se. So when there is a possibility and there are going to be e-courts, E-learning has become a new norm. For e-learning, what a lawyer is supposed to learn, the e-lawyering, including e-filing. So e-filing, which is taken care by the e-committee of the Supreme Court, which was launched during this pandemic period only by the Honorable Chief Justice of India, Justice Chandrachud Sahab, has become a new normal. So when the profession has gone much ahead on e-platform, teaching, learning, pedagogy cannot be away from that platform. So the classroom teaching, especially the legal education, has to have a compatibility with the e-courts, e-learning, e-lawyering, and e-filing. And when e-courts, e-lawyering, e-filing becomes a new normal of legal education and legal profession, all the research scholars, all the teachers, the young, the middle-aged, and the senior most, either they have to relearn or uplearn their teaching abilities, because the teaching methods, teaching tools, teaching pedagogy are going to be different. Coming to the next, because e-learning and e-courts, e-filing has become a norm. I learned from the website of the DME, and I have been told Honorable Justice Bhavar Singh and Dr. N.K. Behl, they are taking care of Judicial Training Academy as well. So this Judicial Training Academy, of course, is not a new norm, because the central government tried a number of times to come out with the All India Judicial Services, and the Honorable Chief Justice of India, the present one, is very keen to have the All India Judicial Services. At the same time, Judicial Training Institute is becoming a very popular and a very kind of need-based learning system. Based on the NDA, where after 12th, the students go to NDA and they come out with a kind of an officer. Why not these law schools, private and public, identify the students from second year onwards, those who are keen to be a member of bar or the bench? Let me just remind you all, second phase of reforms in legal education when began with the establishment of National Law School, Bangalore, way back in 1988. The then Chief Justice of India, the Bar Council of India, the State Bar Council of Karnataka, and the Chief Minister of Karnataka, they were very keen to come out with the model in the form of a national school to start with integrated degree course, and in place of the giving 6 years, the degree and the law degree, if put together, let them save by 1 year, and in 5 years, they will be provided with integrated degree course. And the main purpose was from traditional legal education to move to practical and based legal education, where in the classroom, the basics will be given by the best teachers, and procedural laws, procedural requirements, to be a judge, to be a member of the bench, bar, learning will be given by the advocates, by the retired judges of the district courts, the high courts, and the Supreme Court. But that was never taken seriously. And today, the most of the product of these law schools are not with the bar and the bench. And we all blame the standard of the bars are not good. The standards of the bench the lengthy decisions and all are not that good. But to whom we are belonging, we need to think within ourselves. We need to introspect where this legal education is going, whether it is going in this direction which was thought of. Today we are in the third generation of reforms in legal education. And if DME college or such kind of colleges come forward with the judicial training academy, or maybe through extra credit course or elective courses, to groom the students, those who are keen to go on the bench, they're supposed to be given the understanding of that kind, because being a member of the bench, the skills are different. Being a member of the bar are different being a member of the academia. So there are professional requirements, be it attitude, be it very, say, active listener or passive listener, active speaker or a very passive speaker, very articulative in writing skills and all. So the new normal becomes for us as on today to provide different kind of teachings to the students, different kind of learnings to the students, including the judicial training. If it is given at the early age and students make up their mind, by the time they complete their job, 5 years degree program, they become the best product to be a member of the bench. And of course, they may go to the bar, and from bar, they may go to the bench. And definitely, standard will improve. For this, I really thanks to Justice Bhavar Singh ji and Dr. N.K. Bahal ji to carry on with this mission. It's a mission for you, unless it becomes a new normal for the other law colleges or institutions of higher education in private and public sector. Let me share with all of you from my side, the Honorable Chief Justice of India is the Chancellor for me and the Chairman of General Council. The Lordship has identified a percentage of the entire investment in the university towards university social responsibility. Though we are not a profit-oriented institution, we are a public institution. But we too owe a university social responsibility. And of that budget, we conduct classes by the experts throughout the country for the students, those who registered with us, they want to go for judiciary. And these classes are on Saturday, Sunday. It's a routine affair. And there are a number of students, those who are keen, but they were not trained properly in the past. Had they been trained properly, the situation would have been totally different today. Because, let me share with my students, the young students here, the way you respond the examinations in the normal course of things in your respective institutions are different from the way you are required to respond the questions asked to you in the competitive examinations, especially the judiciary. So that kind of learning and mindset of the students, the attitude and the aptitude, both are required to be trained during the course of these 5 years by the college, by the school, by the institutions of higher learning. Then it of course becomes a new learning, and which is the need of the hour. Coming to the concluding side from my side, because I should not speak for long, being positive has been normal for humans since their inception. I repeat, being positive has been normal for humans since their inception. The new normal is not to be positive. means corona positive, but to survive with positivity. Without positivity, it will be difficult to accept the new normal. So I request my all young students sitting here, whatever you have learned until March 2020, unlearn that, relearn the new things, and you will be the best future budding lawyers and legal professionals of the country. And the need of the hour is to restore confidence. So kindly don't lose your confidence. Preserve learning abilities. Whatever abilities you have developed, preserve them, not to lose anything. Revive teaching, learning pedagogy, request to all teachers and academic administrators, and recover stronger. We'll come back soon with much more strong skills in teaching, learning pedagogy. By concluding, to remain connected with your family and loved ones, read a lot, research as much as you can, and be ready for the new normal, professional and personal life. Thank you very much from my side. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Professor Dr. Vinay ma'am has to leave for some very urgent work. So we would like to thank her for joining with us for this conclave. Over to Bhavesh sir to please present the vote of thanks to ma'am before she leaves.
Before vote of thanks, can you take some questions if there are?
Yes, sir, we will take the
Please.
question.
Yeah, ma'am is back.
Ma'am has to leave for some urgent work.
Acha.
So we'll just
So
thank
let
her.
us take the questions first. Let me understand something from my attendees and audience.
Right, sir, definitely. So a question has been posed that whether the content delivery will be compromised in this online mode of teaching. Would you
Whether?
feel that way? So the content delivery in the lectures, will those be compromised in this online mode of teaching?
No, not at all. Not at all. If teachers are comfortable, they are the good in their domain area. As I mentioned into my lecture, supply or delivery of pure content is not the best practice of teaching. Along with the content, give supporting examples, refer case law. Generally what we do, we refer case law and we'll give the ratio in a one sentence or two sentences. That may be okay in the physical teaching learning pedagogy, but in virtual, give them the obiter along with ratio. In that case, students will not lose anything and teaching will remain relevant teaching. Of course, relevant teaching is the need of the hour. Next question, please.
All right. So another question is that how far the online teaching will obviate the need of law teachers?
See, online teaching is only the way now. It's a new normal. All law teachers are supposed to get into that. Even institutions are open in the month of October, November, or December, or as and when. This online teaching will continue in different form. Form in the sense, I'm a vice chancellor, let me share with you. All lectures, even in your classroom, through digital podium will be recorded, will be put on the website for the betterment of the students or other students, those who wish to think about the law. Let these teachings be spread over to the students, even the future aspirants also. So the virtual teaching is going to remain forever. It will never be 100% replaced by the physical teaching, even when things becomes normal.
All right.
Next.
Thank you so much, sir. So with this, I would request Professor Dr. Bhavesh Gupta to conclude the event with the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Vedpriya, for giving me an opportunity to speak on this auspicious occasion, and it's a matter of honor for me. Well, good afternoon, Honorable DG Sir, Director Dr. Ravikant Swami, Dean Dr. N.K. Bahel, teachers, participants, and my dear students. Once a great man said, feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a gift and not giving it. So today, I, on behalf of DME and the entire fraternity of the institution, take this opportunity to put all my gratitude in the form of words. It's indeed a profound privilege to have Professor Dr. Vinay Kapoor Mehra, Vice Chancellor, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, NLU, and Professor Dr. Vijendra Kumar, Vice Chancellor, Maharashtra, NLU, Nagpur. Well, the two eminent and renowned academicians who blessed and graced today's conclave by their benign presence, it was obviously a lifetime cherishable and I must say an outstanding opportunity which cannot be forgotten by any one of us. Sir, ma'am, your insightful talk on impact of COVID on legal education and career prospects was full of wisdom and information. The way you shared with the participants various tips pertaining to the said topic will definitely help in making the optimal use of mind power and inner potential. Even we, the faculties, the teachers, were enlightened by your enlightening talk and inspirational thoughts. I feel the teachers and professors who attended this esteemed conclave will be able to extract best results out of the students by applying the tips given by you in today's conclave in their teaching and classrooms. Once again, I thank to both our eminent speakers for having spared their precious time for all of us with their unflinching support, and that too sparing the time on Sunday when our eminent speaker had said that this is a time to be there to be with our family, the friends. Sir, we are indebted to you so much. With this, I am also thankful to Vedpriya Lahiri, Priyansha Hajela, and Navjot for having organized this wonderful Vice Chairman's conclave. Thank you so very much. With these warm words, I just conclude. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
sir.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I thank all the dignitaries. The participants may stay back to record their attendance. Thank you. Good day.
I think we've circulated. How many responses we've received, Priyansha ma'am, with respect to the attendance form?
Ma'am, we've received around 150 responses.
Can we stop the live streaming? I think Vedpriya ma'am, you are the host now.
Okay.